Reframing has a number of themes that we use to get started. And these are just beginning points. These are just ways to get going. As I said earlier in some of the videos, sometimes when you see a person that's really hurt or really angry, what's behind the anger? They're hurt. Sometimes the anger that they show on the outside is a way of protecting a fragile inside. Lecturing or teaching sometimes are easily synonymous. Nagging or being all over somebody, you know what it does? It shows how important they are. When you're disobeying, while not smart, it is a sign of independence. And when you're demanding rather than self-centered, it's probably likely you're strong-willed. Now, let me give you some examples of how these theme hints work. So let's take something very, very simple. How about when a youth looks like they don't care at all? What would you say? Because it's frequent in early family sessions that as discussions, it's frequent in early family sessions that as discussions go on, the youth may disengage, they may change their attention to something else. It can be a point in which parents can respond to fairly quickly. I might respond by saying, yeah, I hear it. That's really important. I can see how that hurts you. And I may say, it could be that he or she is protecting themselves or feeling a bit confused. It's a difficult world, and protecting yourself from hurt might come from all the unsuccessful attempts in the past. Or you may say that the quietness might be about protecting from divided loyalty or conflict between parents, not knowing which parent to follow. And if they work this out, one way or the other, they might just be disloyal for either to their birth parents in a foster care situation or to one of the other parents. Maybe it is because they're struggling to find their own voice and opinion, or maybe it is they're protecting themselves and their caregivers because they don't know if they can manage the anger in a way that won't hurt the other. Look at these 4 or 5 really easy ways of responding to when a youth doesn't look like they care. And if you are able to respond in an authentic and genuine way as this comes up in a conversation, you can see how helpful it will be because it does give the other person an alternative perspective of what happened. Here's another one. What if a youth defends, for example, in a foster care situation, a problematic parent or a birth parent, and it's not something that really fits the circumstances? Think about it. You could say, again, that they're protecting themselves from the complex, difficult feelings related to this, and that they have an emotional connection. It's not really about facts. It's not really about saying that one parent, a birth parent or a non-birth parent, is good or bad, but it's a way of protecting them, the youth, from painful feelings like loss and abandonment. Wow, what a meaning to switch from problematic youth defending a parent and being unfair, which is what it might feel like to one parent, to this description. Or what happens when the youth says, you're not my parents, or one dad or mom is more of a parent to me than you, being the other one. These are things that can really hurt a parent. And one way of responding, of course, is to acknowledge that hurt, but talk about that the youth feels conflicted about the loyalty to his parents or birth parents because, you're not the parents. It doesn't mean you can't be critical of them. And parents are important in the life of a youth. Again, you can see the value that would have. Let's take a couple more concrete examples. Here's Mabel. Now, I'm going to present this in 2 ways as a family and then add some things that are relevant to a foster care situation. This is what Mabel said. Paul, he's very disrespectful to me and other adults. He will not follow the house rules. He will not do what he's supposed to do. He won't talk to me. He's quick to start yelling at me about the smallest of things. He's been taking the bus to school, and then he leaves school without permission. And when he is in school, he's gotten in trouble so many times. I have to take calls from the principal to go pick him up. And all this could make me lose my job. And if I lose my job, I can't keep him, and I can't keep the house going. And he's becoming a bad role model for his brother. In a foster care situation, that core struggle may be complicated by this. In fact, I told this caseworker, I don't think I can keep him unless he will behave. But that doesn't seem to matter to him. He already thinks he's grown up and he doesn't need anybody. Boy, look at the description Mabel gives. Mabel sees him as disrespectful to him and to her and other adults. And she sees him not doing what she wants him to do. Now, she can describe his behavior, but boy, it takes it to a whole nother level by implying that he doesn't care, that he's not trying. This is the attribution that she gives, and that's the emotional part that gets her upset and makes it very difficult for her to work with the youth. Here's what Paul says. Mabel always tries to boss me around and be in my business. She yells at me all the time. Now she started taking things away from me like the TV, the internet, and the computer, and it just isn't fair. Now, in a foster care situation, he may add, and she's not my mother and she needs to leave me alone. I've been managing these things fine on my own. I just need a place to stay until my dad gets out of rehab, and then everything is going to be fine. You know what? She gets paid to give me a place to stay. Isn't that enough? She's just in it for the money. Again, another situation in which you can see it is a very blaming definition of the struggle between them. And you can see how both of these problem definitions can get Mabel and Paul very stuck. Now, if we were to reframe these problem definitions, meaning as Paul spoke and Mabel spoke, you were to follow the reframing process, you would certainly acknowledge, and then you might say, Paul has survived a lot. He's managed by himself. And in many ways, he's able to be very independent. He also knows that there are things he can't manage. You don't really see it very often, and it's hard to figure those out. And it's hard to probably even know, for him to know, how to ask and how to look for help that he might be able to receive. Might even be hard to see that there's help out there. Now, when he walks away, when he retreats, it's hard for you to figure out how to work things out with him. The anger and the hurt make it hard to sort out, and it's hard to see this in his behavior. It also, I might say, it might be hard to see the intention behind his behavior. When she's, Mabel's done what worked for her own kids, Mabel's done what worked for your brother, that's her way of trying to help, not change you. And when you get overwhelmed, we know you start protecting yourself from these really complicated and difficult things that go on inside that are hard to understand. And she wants to help you and she wants to help follow you. But since, you're managing it on your own, it's hard to see what she's doing. Is it helpful? Switching it like that is a way to respond to that problem definition. Now, to Mabel, we could say, what's worked for you before is being close to your kids, being close to your foster kids, and using that closeness to help work things out. Because your base is to work together through closeness. These are really good ideas because it's worked really well. What's difficult here is that Paul is different and he has had a long history of that not working. And the problem is it has worked for you in other situations. This means that your good parenting ideas and your good intentions may actually get lost, and you, of course, feel hurt as a result because you're trying to show your love as you did for either your own kids or siblings, and that doesn't really fit Paul, given what he's been through and how he handles himself. It might also be that your persistence, sticking with it, which is, by the way, a real strength because you take it seriously as you should, worked well with your family and worked with other kids, but it can easily be misunderstood as anger and irritation rather than persistence. You're looking to connect with him. You're looking, you're looking to help him feel as if he's being disciplined in a useful way. But it's hard to remember how sensitive he might be and how easy it might be for him to misunderstand your cues. This is going to be hard for you to understand because when you get confused or hurt, then your purpose is to work things out. And when you don't get it done and he doesn't respond, it actually makes you feel worse. When it gets harder, it also becomes difficult for his siblings. After saying that to Mabel and Paul, what I might say to both of them is, you know what, you two, this is a real challenge for both of you because how you perceive each other and about what each of you intend can really be misunderstood and then it gets out of hand. And I think the focus for you is to be immediate, try to work together, try to help each other not misunderstand, and learn to work things out. The last section, I talked about how reframing has a real purpose, and it's a core skill, particularly in the beginning phases of FFT. And remember what I said is in the conversation between the family and the therapist or case manager or caseworker, what happens is that the interventionist, the therapist, responds in a way to the family in a purposeful way that's intended to try to reduce blame, negativity, or create a family focus to the problem that builds alliance. So let's talk a little bit about how reframing as an event, a thing that you do a number of times in a session, becomes a core and central part of the treatment process. Because reframing, as I said, is a means to an end. It's a means to creating something, and in this case, it's a thread or it's a core around which all of the rest of treatment is built. So if you think about it, reframing begins as a theme hint. It's an idea, it's a guess. Over time, as you go around and around, you make it more personal. You add things that you learn as you go. So reframing is a process of adding, not just switching between them to find the right one, but adding layers as you move along so that you can understand and you can begin to make it more and more personal. And as it evolves over time, as you continue to reframe through the discussions, you're going to begin to link people together. And you're going to keep doing that until you've linked everybody together in a way that involves everyone and makes everyone part of an alternative explanation that describes the problem and the challenge they're facing in a way that pulls them in, feels solvable and hopeful, and attributes the behavior of the others in this situation to noble intention. Not describing it away, letting them keep responsibility, but describing it in a way that it affects the attribution, therefore the emotion and the behaviors that follow of the other person. So it's a little bit, in a sense, like braiding, if you think about it like that, like taking different strands of something in your reframing. The reframing strand for the youth, the reframing strand for the caregiver, mom, dad, the foster parent, and kind of pulling those together into a comprehensive braid, something in which all the different strands are interrelated. So in a sense, it works a little like this. You start with the different strands in the family. You keep working at it so that they start to come together with and through a collaborative process with the family until you finally come up with an idea, a way of talking about what's going on with them in a way that intertwines all of their perspectives into something that's different. We call this a family relational theme. Now, when you begin reframing, as I talked about in the last video, they're just theme hints, and they're theme hints that can be very simple. Hurt behind the anger, anger is protection, when you lecture, it's teaching, nagging means that you're important, disobeying is a reflection of potentially misguided independence, and if you demand a lot, strong-willedness, and your emotional anger can be passionate caring. These are the beginning. This is where you take the different strands of people and you begin to talk about how hurt behind the anger with one person in the family, and it's a bit different because it's protection with the other, and you can begin to talk about how those are connected. Over time, through the first number of sessions in FFT, as you continue to do this, and this is why continuing over a number of sessions is important, because the family begins to engage with your ideas, and these ideas go from being theme hints to something that can actually form the goals of a collaborative treatment plan. So in a sense, reframing and relational themes are the center. They're the thread that runs through the center of all treatment. It is the foundation upon which we'll build collaborative treatment plans and we'll do behavior change. And it's useful because this theme or this braid that you've created through reframing is one that's family focused. In that sense, it's one that is all about us. It identifies each person's part so that they can say, I have a part. It reframes the intention of all. What you did isn't okay, but I understand it's your intention, not you. Identifies the noble part, frames the next step. Therefore, the next steps are to be able to find a way to work it out given these struggles. And they are specific behaviors, and they identify specific behaviors that can be part of a comprehensive treatment plan. And in that way, the braid gets pulled together and forms the foundation of the next phase, which is behavior change, where you're going to actually change behaviors. Now, it isn't that reframing doesn't change behavior. It certainly softens people, certainly allows people to come together, but unless you follow it with behavior change, it could be short-lived. Now, there are some core themes and reframes, and these are things that you can respond to when you see things in order to reduce blame and negativity. For example, the use of bad behavior, while not the best choice, is a way of protecting himself. The caregiver's anger or struggle in response comes from feeling pushed away and taken for granted. While this is understandable, it gets in the way of parenting and learning to work together. Just one example. Sometimes the youth's strong reaction and anger is a reflection of hurt and loss that she struggles with inside. For the caregiver, it's hard to see this, so instead it feels upsetting. It feels more like a personal attack. This is what makes it hard to work things out together. It makes it hard to help the youth manage their anger. A couple more. The youth not showing gratitude can come from the struggles inside, their loyalties and their ways of coping and feeling overwhelmed. And the caregiver's expectations and efforts make this hard to understand and gets in the way of working together. Another example. It's difficult to see the hurt behind the youth's anger. When he or she is hurt and when he or she insert a behavior, it's his way of dealing with loss. He or she are not participating in a way to help both her, protect her and you, because she fears it may lead to more anger. Now, these are not intended to be canned responses. They're intended to be examples of how you can find the noble intention behind a very specific, difficult bad behavior. Now, why does reframing and relational themes work, and why is it therapeutic? Well, first of all, it identifies noble intent, and that reduces blame and negativity. And we know from the literature that promotes engagement, motivation, and the willingness to try new things. It actually sets the goal of therapy, because the relational theme, the family relational theme, will be where we pull and where we identify skills that are needed. So it really helps keep focused and relevant. In our words, and kind of funny joke, it helps you stay out of the weeds. It helps you stay out of the detail, because it is in the detail that people fight. So by taking a thematic view through a relational theme, it helps you stay out of those. If you respond when families and sessions get into a back and forth with a reframing response that is connected to the relational theme, it will break negative relational patterns, those cycling things that happen that get families really lost. And it does so by offering a different possibility that they could respond with. Provides positive attribution by identifying noble intention. Builds a family focus, which creates alliance, which is a core feature of moving forward. And it becomes the thread of treatment. And it is the place you go back to when you get lost. It is the place you go back to when treatment gets difficult. It's what you work on in behavior change, and where you identify and pull skills that are helpful for each person in the family to accomplish their challenge. Reframing and the relational themes that come from it that are critical to good FFT.